Greetings, rise and shine, brethren. We are the World Global Reset Restoration Network family, comprised of 198 sovereign nations with over 7 billion sovereign principles, being of one mind, one heart, and one spirit, walking together under the divine principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I come to you as a voice in the wilderness to introduce to you a man. No, not just any man, but a man sent by Yah Allah to redeem mankind. Dr. Hindu I.L. Henderson, the Adak Chief Justice of the Universal World Court, and who's also known as Yehoshua Mashiach, the Son of Man. The information that you will be receiving in this and other videos you won't get from anywhere else on the planet. Hear the many truths and fulfillment of the laws, judgments, and sentencings from our Creator, Father Yah, as well as the fulfillment of the true interpretation of the Holy Scriptures and books. Now, without further ado, Dr. Hindu I.L. Henderson with his beloved host, Shelley Bowling.
These are the things, United Nations, that we must come back to realize, and with all facts of reality, we must come to the truth. We must not only just bear this truth, but this truth has to be recognized, and it has to be accepted by all men and women of the planet. And as even though we do clear up those things as we go along, for the simple fact that right now many of the nations have found themselves having women leaders. And as even the United Nations, our Secretary of State of the United Nations Secretary of State, known as Mr. Gutierrez, we have to get him to understand that it's not about the violation of equal rights for women, but you need to understand that yet and still in the Holy Scriptures, in which even you yourself is a student of, you must realize that it was never meant for a woman to have the works of her hand to be recognized on any planet, based upon the fact that the curse inside of the garden, if you might read your book, was not about her having to do any work. It was about man being able to work by the sweat of his brow. And he was to work with his hands to determine exactly how he was going to come back to fix the things in which he allowed on his clock to become nothing more than sin and destruction. Her curse was not to work by the works of the sweat of her brow, but her curse was to bear and to bore children into the world, and her pains were to be multiplied if we truly read the Scripture for what it's worth, and stop saying that it is because of the works of some feminine force hands, because that is not what the Holy Scripture says, and neither was it a commandment of Yah Allah, God of the universe, the only God. So thereby, until we all recognize the truth and accept the fact, we will find ourselves suffering from a lack of memory based upon the fact that we have a short-term memory that turns into a long-term memory of loss. because we just don't want to accept the fact. America is moving now to move some would-be feminine force and perhaps maybe a melanated force into their would-be leadership. But they must realize that it has been the melanated force of leadership that has destroyed the masculine melanated force of leadership. Stay with me. Don't get angry. But you have to understand that right now, it has been determined by truth, not based upon someone's assumption of someone's would-be percentage, but it's based upon the fact that every time we have found ourselves, I'm talking about the world, the universe, we have found ourselves under siege. It has always been where the feminine force and the melanated force has always been one in whom has found themselves being in total disagreement and total disobedience to the word of Allah, God of the universe. Yes, we must realize that if Adam was of a melanated world, so was Eve. And thereby Eve was the one who found herself being beguiled. She was the one that was so weak that she found herself listening to Satan in the garden, whereby brought on destruction for all mankind. Stay with me. I'm not attacking any feminine force. I'm clearing up the facts so we understand what facts are and what fiction is. We have to clear up all the things now that has developed to this point where we find ourselves in a time of destruction. Chaos. Chaos comes from confusion, and this confusion has been upon the planet now since the moment that Adam and Eve found themselves under it. And since that time, United Nations, we find every nation on the planet is under the same chaotic of confusion. And whereby now for us to complete the process of going forth to bring forth the world of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, to bring forth the world where sovereignty will be of every individual on the planet, whereby equality will be of every individual on the planet, we must first be able to clear out our dusty closets of confusion and lies and manipulation of the history in which was written by a European world of colonialism and colonizing people's minds as well as their bodies. The time now where all of that will come to a screeching halt. Aren't you glad? Because now you're going to be able to truly do what the would-be so-called founding fathers of the United States even mentioned in their big so-called great document, where they said we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men were created equal and that they were endowed. We already understand that even if these documents are not true, if they had no meaning to them, they must understand that the creation of man from the Creator himself, Yah Allah, God of the universe, did state these things himself. He began it by saying, "Come and let us make man in our own image." That would have been equal. I don't know how you read it. I don't know how you interpret it. But I can tell you, "Come and let us make man in our own image," would have been saying to me that we were created equally. And thereby being equal, we were to maintain that equality. We lost that in the garden based upon the fact of nothing more than sin coming from that in which would have been classified as the spouse, the wife. Yes, we don't want to take that and blame her totally for anything. But we need the feminine force of the universe to recognize that in the garden, you are the weaker vessel there. Outside the garden, you're going to be the weaker vessel there. And I would say, when given the opportunity to have a strong vessel in the midst, allow that strong vessel to take its place. Who cares if they make a mistake or if they fail? It would not be accounted to you, and you would not have to worry about answering for anything. Allow them to be the ones to have to answer to Yah Allah, God of the universe, and you just stay out the way. I am not saying this, United Nations, to destroy any of the would-be liberty of those that deem now to have regained what they say is women's rights. We're all for women leaders. There's nothing wrong with having women leaders. I would say the greatest downfall of having those in which we might deem to be women leaders is that women leaders forget that they are women leaders and they're not masculine, they're not male would-be leaders. And thereby, they find themselves believing that now that they're in the seat to be a male, they have to act as a male. They have to talk as a male. They have to walk as a male. They have to treat people as if though they're male. So they go around believing that they have to show their muscle. They go around believing that they have to get their voices to a point where they demand would be controlled by screaming and yelling like if though they're a man. They get to a point of where they believe that they have to use their fists rather than being in the midst to talk to people in a pleasant way. These things is where we have to then draw the line, where we must realize that just because you are a leader, feminine leader, woman leader, you do not have to take on the aspects, or do you have to take on the attributes of those that you know to be of the masculine force, the man. You don't have to become a man overnight just because you become a leader just that afternoon. The first respect that we must bring to the universe, United Nations, we must first respect the fact that God's greatest creation, if we may call him God, knowing him to be Yah Allah, God of the universe, we must deem his first creation as being the greatest creation, and we have to start being humble to it, and at the same time being honorable to it, and being that in which we now know it to be respectful to. And that is the creation of man, M-A-N. Yes, I do know that when we use the term man, everyone begins to start trying to place themselves in a position where they will be classified as God's greatest creation. But God knew exactly, Yah Allah himself knew exactly whom he deemed to be man and what he made man to be and what he created man to be. He knows. We act as if though sometimes the United Nations, like we serve or we know that the creator of the universe was not that intelligent, knowing him to be the most intelligent and the all-intelligent being of the universe. It seems that sometimes we forget that. And he knew exactly what he meant when he said, man, come and let us make man in our own image. He didn't wait for Adam to say or to call man a man. He did that himself. He said, come and let us make man in our own image. And thereby he himself set forth this great creation, his greatest creation, of what he deemed to be man, mankind. And as we go forward now, United Nations, we do it in a humble manner, a respectful manner, to know that the honor of God and his honor is that in which he deemed to be man.
Emily, we've been talking about our Redeemer, Dr. Henderson, being here and bringing back restoration, redemption to this planet. We talk about the different areas that are to be restored and brought back to the way that Father Yah Allah originally set things up to be. One of the things that is totally upside down right now is the family unit. In fact, if you watch the sitcoms coming out of the United States, you see that the masculine force is created in their characters as being idiots and buffoons without wisdom. The fathers are made to be equally ignorant and idiots in their sitcoms. In fact, if you look and see a lot of the police programs and such, they've got women in charge. Scripture has told us that women will rule over you, but they will cause you to err in these end days. And the children have become insolent and debased against the elders. This is totally flipped, family. Satan and Lucifer have done their dead level best to destroy the family unit. Father Yah set this planet up with the masculine force as the head. The feminine force was brought alongside as a helpmeet, but not to be the rulers. The children back in those days, if they were rebellious, their punishment was very severe, extremely severe. Sometimes they were even stoned. Our children have become rebellious against us. Now we understand that this is what is written and this was what was going to happen. But all of these things must be turned around and set right according to Father Yah's laws. In fact, if you read the 613 laws of Moses, which I highly recommend all of you read if you have not yet, they're very simple, clear, concise, easy to understand. These are the laws that Father Yah gave to Moses for mankind to govern himself by. And as sovereign principles, it is extremely critical for us to be fully aware of what these laws are, because these are the laws we will be living by. Father Yah's laws were set up as a protection for us to be able to govern properly. It wasn't until later on that man started writing his own laws. And as you can see now, that as we have reached the end of that time frame, that period, where man was under the influence of Satan and Lucifer, how destructive man's laws have become. They have stripped mankind of their sovereignty, their dignity, their ability to care for their families, and for them to be able to actually even live. These laws have been set up as a total destruction. Father Yah's laws are simple. They're clear. He has always been very profound in his simplicity. In fact, when the Son of Man brings us things, he always brings us things in simplicity, so that even our babies can understand what he's saying. The restoration of the family is absolutely critical for the restoration of all of the masculine and feminine force relationships. The division that has been brought to mankind from Satan and Lucifer has destroyed or virtually destroyed the family. The divorce rate now is at 50% or even higher. Lack of respect for one another is at an all-time high. For those of us that are older, this world is not the same world that we were born into. It has been fast-forwarded into a place of destruction. So now, we have an opportunity, family, to get things right, to do things Father Yah's way, and they will be done that way, or we will not exist on this planet.